Hey everyone, thank you for listening to another episode of Spoiler Force Podcast. You can find more episodes on any major podcasting platform such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, and even on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and make sure to follow and like Spoiler Force Podcast on Facebook.
What's up, everybody? This is Ming Chen from AMC's Comic Book Men. Listen, I have a podcast studio. I do multiple podcasts. I listen to Kevin Smith's podcast. Those podcasts don't matter. The only podcast that matters, Spoiler Force Podcast. They record in Michigan, my friends. And if that's not an indication of how awesome this podcast is, my man Ricky Veng, the host, he's Asian. So that's all you need to know. I love the Spoiler Force Podcast. Listen to it, subscribe to it, like it, download every episode, and then do all of that all over again because I love Ricky and I love the Spoiler Force Podcast. This is Ming Chen. I love you, Ricky. I love Spoiler Force Podcast. Listen to it, everybody.
All right, so this is episode 57 of Spoiler Force Podcast. My name is Ricky, and thank you for tuning in. This is a great episode that I'm doing here because not only is this my second live video podcast, or this is actually my first live video, but my second video podcast. I have someone from Michigan as well. You may know him from AMC's Comic Book Men, Ming Chen. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, man.
What's up, everybody? If we got Asian podcasting power right here, everybody. Do not deny it. Do not try to fight it. Accept it and love it because it is. We are taking over the world, my friends. And
representation matters, man. We gotta represent.
You know what? It really does. I'm assuming you grew up in Michigan as well.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So did I. I moved to Jackson, Michigan when I was 5. And I stayed there until I was 8, and then I ended up moving to South Bend for 7 years, and then I came back and I lived in Ann Arbor between the ages of 14 and 22. So, growing up in Jackson, Michigan, as in kindergarten through 3rd grade, I'm pretty sure I think I was the only Asian kid around, and it wasn't, I didn't get bullied. And just when you're different, you get a lot of a lot of weird looks. Sometimes you get some comments. I was way shorter than everybody else. The Asian kids are typically smaller than everybody else. So I think I got called shrimp a lot, which isn't really a big insult. I remember I didn't get bullied or anything. I think I remember like in 1st grade, I think there was one older kid who would bother me in the playground. He pushed me down a couple times, and then I figured it out. So for any Asian kids out there who are maybe getting picked on, of a younger age, what I did was I started telling all the kids that Bruce Lee was my uncle, and they backed off, and it worked. It was like magic. It was awesome. Now, never mind, this was about 1982, 83, 1980. Bruce Lee had been dead for 7 years, but these kids didn't know. They didn't know. All they knew was from what they saw in the movies and Enter the Dragon. They didn't know he was dead already. So, but like without fail, they left me alone right away. They were afraid of the dragon, man. They're afraid, like, it's like, oh man, he might be like water, man. He might try to, he might whip out some of that Jeet Kune Do on us. And so I don't know how well that would work now in 2020, but
I don't know. For me, when I was growing up in school, I had one cousin that came to pick me up one time because I was sick.
Yeah.
And a lot of the kids saw him. My cousin's actually a lot bigger for, like, I guess you could say like a normal or a regular Asian size person. Yeah. He's like 5'9". He's pretty stocky. So kids saw him and they're like, Ricky, is he a gangbanger? I'm like, yep. All my cousins are gangbangers.
Yep.
Don't mess with me. That's how I got away with everything from bullying.
Don't mess with family, man. don't mess with that. You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. Like,
pretty much. And like
they said in Spider-Man.
That's the funny thing too. Like, kids would think that I was associated with like, gangbanging when really I'm just playing video games at home. Like, I had nothing to do with that stuff.
I know. Yeah, the only gangbang I'm doing is like Call of Duty or like or back in my day it was like GoldenEye. Or Doom. I played a lot of Doom and Quake, like first person shooters. That's about as far as I got to any weapons or any gangs or any clans. So Yeah, we were gangs of one, man. We were locked up in our like nerds in our own rooms playing video games. So, but yeah, we don't have to let the rest of the world know that. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, we're spilling out too many secrets.
Yeah, probably, but whatever. We'll come up with new secrets for sure.
Have you gone on Shannon Lee's podcast at all?
I have not. I love Shannon Lee does the Bruce Lee podcast where they talk about a lot of philosophy
Yeah.
and things. They expound on a lot of the Bruce Lee sayings. He's got a lot of great quotes. That I think he's got so many great motivational quotes that if they haven't put him into a book yet, they really should. And I would love to be on there. I think they lean really more toward the philosophical and inspiration. Like inspiration I can give you, just through my own weird, wacky story working with Kevin and somehow winding up on a TV show. But I've never really studied any kind of philosophy or Eastern philosophy, and I think I goof around too much to really like get in depth with say like the I Ching or any of the ancient philosophical aspects. But that's what I loved so much about Bruce Lee. He was a student. I think he got a degree in philosophy, and he really not only did he live by like the ancient philosophical tenets, but he came up with a lot of his own that he spread out into the world. And so that's why I love Bruce Lee so much. Like he could kick you in the face, and then he could inspire you.
Yeah,
and I think
I agree.
That's a pretty rare quality. We tried to get Shannon Lee. Excuse me. We tried to get Shannon Lee on Comic Book Man one season. I don't know if you saw a few years ago. They did. I think it's called The Return of the Dragon, or there was a Bruce Lee comic book that came out. Maybe
I actually bought the single issues.
Yeah. And Shannon Lee co-wrote it, and it was basically the plot was, and Bruce Lee didn't really die. He had been cryogenically frozen, and he was in a warehouse, and some evil company had done this, and somehow he melts and becomes reanimated again, and these two modern day kids find him, and I remember they stash him in a Walmart, like in a tent in a Walmart, I think, and he watches TV to catch up over the last 30 years of what he missed, and it was pretty interesting. It's definitely an interesting idea for a comic book and a very interesting way of bringing Bruce Lee back, and yeah, it was I guess a good way to kind of preserve the memory of her father. I thought the plot was a little weird, like, he didn't fake his death, but he was just suspended in ice, I guess, for the last 30 some years. And I thought, and he kind of comes back and reteaches his philosophy to kids of our age. I thought it was pretty cool. I'm trying to remember what publisher put that out. As I went up to them, I was like, "Hey, man, I really enjoyed that. I thought you guys did a great job."
I think it was IDW that did it.
It was one of those, yeah. It was one of those for sure. And yeah, we tried to get her on the show, and it just didn't happen. But I thought that would have been really cool if we got Shannon Lee on the show for sure. It would have been cool to have a piece of the Lee legacy come on to Comic Book Men. It was something I had suggested, and the producers had kind of worked on it, but it ultimately just didn't happen.
Have you met her at any conventions at all? I think she's
been
to several.
Yeah, if she has been at a convention, I didn't. Like, I would love to meet her, and I love that. I don't know if this was a story that maybe she'd been thinking of for a while, but I love that instead of maybe writing a screenplay or like a fictional novel, that she put it into comic book form. I think that's the only way they could have done it, because that way you can draw whatever you want. You can draw anything you can imagine. I love that she chose a comic book medium to tell that story. And so if you don't, anybody listening or watching out there, if you don't have it, pick it up. There's a trade paperback. Yep. It's pretty amazing. I was really, I remember seeing it, I think in previews or one of the, that it was coming up, and I was like, holy crap, man, that's awesome. And it is called Bruce Lee, The Dragon Rises. And it is from I think the name of the company is actually it's Darby Pop, I believe, is the Darby Pop is the publisher.
Okay.
The more independent publisher, but they did a really good job, and I'm pretty sure that there's a trade paperback of, I believe it's 6 issues. It's definitely worth checking out for sure.
Yeah, I thought they were gonna keep going with it with the second arc of the story, but they didn't, because I know they did the Free Comic Book Day one, and then they did the 6-issue series, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah, for sure. But I think, why they didn't continue that one. I think they could, the legend of the dragon in comic book form, I don't think is dead. I think they could. There are multiple worlds and situations you can put him in, even though he's no longer with us, like physically in 2020. I think there are ways to bring him back, and and in a way, he inspired a upcoming Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, Shang-Chi Master of Kung Fu. Back in the 70s Kung Fu craze when Shang-Chi was created. I mean, there's no doubt he was inspired by Bruce Lee. So in a way, Bruce Lee lives on, not only through the Shang-Chi Master of Kung Fu comic book run and then some of the modern issues, but now finally we get some Asian, some like hardcore Asian starring representation in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm pretty excited about it. I follow Simu Liu, who's playing Shang-Chi in the movies. I follow him on social media, and he looks like he's really, not only is he like proud to represent Asians in the movies and in the Marvel universe, but he's taking it very seriously, it looks like, and I'm pretty excited. The quote I heard it was like, "Hey, we're gonna do for like kind of the Asian culture in Shang-Chi what we did for the African American culture in Black Panther, how that kind of united." Not only united, I think in a way it united the world, but I think it opened up a lot of eyes, Black Panther, to
having an all Black cast or Black Panther, and then now with Shang-Chi having an all Asian cast, that it really shows the diversity especially for films. Like a lot of the issues back like a few years ago too, just having representation, and it was a huge deal at the time. And now everyone wants that more for like for any race really.
Yeah, and honestly, it's even though I think they're making effort not only in the movies and Hollywood, it's getting a little better. I mean, I wound up on TV, so that's a step in the right direction, I guess. But I think in comics, I think some people would be like, "Hey, do you have any favorite Asian like superheroes?" And I was like, well, there aren't that many. There was that dude in Gen 13. Crap, I can't remember his name right now. I give there's the Ray. There's a DC character called the Ray. He was Korean. Psylocke was Asian. Like there aren't like a ton of Asian leading heroes or villains for that matter. And the villains were like Fu Manchu, the Mandarin. They were kind of cartoony and stereotypical. So I think we could definitely see more. I would love to see a leading Asian play a character, not Star-Lord, but like Star-Lord. Like, why not? Why, something like that.
Right. So someone that's not kind of like profiled already to be like that role. They can be a leading man role or even a main villain, really, without trying to be the typical character. Yeah,
exactly. And I think they just ESPN just released a 30 for 30 documentary about Bruce Lee, and they talked to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Kareem was like, "Yeah, man, Bruce had to fight every step of the way just to even be, a co-star in the Green Hornet, and he had to fight to be. He tried to. He had Kung Fu, the TV show, stolen from him, and they put David Carradine, who looks nowhere near Asian in an Asian man. They said he was Asian. I'm like, I remember as a kid watching Kung Fu. I'm like, that guy ain't Asian. Like that guy's. It's like you can't. That guy's whiter than Mike Zapsik, man. Like what are they trying to? What are they trying to pull here? It's even as like a 6-year-old, I was like, what are they trying to pull here?
Like even the Asian stereotypes back then too. They would really like put that out there. The fat Asian guy with chinky eyes and glasses and buck teeth. The real stereotypical stuff. They would, put like imagine if that was today, man. People would.
Oh yeah. No, it wouldn't fly today. It wouldn't fly today. But it'll be fun to see Simu Liu with all the Shang-Chi and all the Marvel backstory behind him, kicking ass and just opening eyes, I think. And I'm wondering, the comics, I don't know if you've read the whole run of Shang-Chi the Master of Kung Fu or any of it. It started out as kind of a kung fu exploitation comic book. They were riding the wave of the kung fu craze of the 70s. But I think maybe about issue 15, they turned him into kind of an Asian James Bond, where they would send him out on missions, and he did. Shang-Chi doesn't really have any superpowers. He's just really good at kung fu, and he wants revenge on his father, Fu Manchu, and his sister's in the mix. But I thought that was really cool. Like, he did turn into a leading man, and I'm encouraged. And so what I'm hearing, and I think the one of the ways that this movie will work is if they turn it into like a really good kung fu movie, with all the Marvel, with bells and whistles, I guess I would call it, or the Marvel pedigree. Because I was asking a friend, I was like, when was the last time they came up with a really good kung fu movie, like something super memorable, like Enter the Dragon? And we started thinking, I was like, I guess The Raid maybe was kind of one of the last ones. Like, I couldn't. We were trying to
The Raid or Ip Man, something like that.
Ip Man, yeah. We were trying to pull one out. So I think it's time. I think it's time again where you get the badass, like, awesome kung fu movies that we grew up with, updated for 2020, and with Marvel characters in it. Like, this should be pretty awesome. So I mean, I think my only question is, Ricky, like, how do we get in the background of the Shang-Chi movie? I just want to be in the background, like buying a hamburger or something, or like running away. Like, I'll totally take that. So I don't know.
I would be happy just to be walking. I was an extra in a independent film that our friends have here in Michigan. Shout out to Clean Slate Productions. They called me. They're like, hey, we need an extra. Can you just walk around in the background? Yep. And I just took a few steps, and I was happy already. That's so awesome. I would love to do something like that too, just for especially for a Shang-Chi movie. That'd be cool. Walk around.
Yeah. It was Kevin's thrown me in a couple of his movies, which is pretty cool. But the best part is, like, you're done. You're like, hey man, when do we eat? And they feed you really well on these things. So yeah, that's I look forward to the food, and they have really good snacks on film sets. I can't even imagine what like the food table, like the snack table, looks like on a Marvel set. Can you imagine? It's probably got everything imaginable.
Yeah.
You want Nutter Butters? They have Nutter Butters. You want Skittles? They have every single flavor. You want purple M&Ms? They'll go get them for you. I can't even imagine how awesome that is. So, yeah. I can't remember what the release date was. I don't know if it's been pushed back now with all the
I think it might have, because so many films were, and like the films that were set for this summer, they're all for like either the fall or even winter, or maybe even like next year. Because I know like movies like Fast and Furious got pushed to next year.
Right. So apparently they've set it for May 7th, 2021, but it is June, and they haven't shot a frame of film yet because they can't right now. That's pretty quick. I imagine it might get pushed back, which kind of stinks. May 7th is a really good release slot for a summer movie.
Yeah, the month of May always has like great films coming out.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see. I imagine there's going to be a lot of post-production involved, and it sounds kind of optimistic that in 11 months they'll be able to put it together, a major Marvel production. So we'll see what happens. I don't know about you. I'm missing all the movies that were supposed to come out that we missed. Black Widow back in May, and then I think Wonder Woman 84 was supposed to come out last weekend or 2 weekends ago.
Yep.
And that's been pushed back. And I miss going to the movies as well.
Yeah, I miss like pre-ordering tickets and going to the theater. Because I had like a ticket for like an anime movie that was coming out in March. Yeah, and I was like right before everyone was told to stay home, and then when that happened, I couldn't go anymore. Yeah. So like I recently drove past a movie theater here in Michigan, and like just seeing the empty lot.
It's weird.
It's like a ghost town. Like it looks weird to see a movie theater empty like that.
It was, I remember. I drive by one constantly, and either Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you expect to see the lot full of people, of cars, and then people walking to the movie theater. And it was a little eerie. Not like the lot's empty because there's no movies right now. I guess there's the resurgence of the drive-in movies going on right now, where that's safe because you stay in your own car. I think that's pretty cool. I don't know if you've ever been to the one in Dearborn. It's the Ford, Wyoming. There are 12 screens, I think.
I've seen it. I've seen the area, but I've never been there because I used to drive for my job. So I
Yeah.
used to drive around there and drop off like material and stuff.
Yep.
So I would always pass it, but I'd never been there.
I highly recommend it. You should go. And if I'm not mistaken, they're probably running movies right now. I may be wrong, but I'm going to guess that they are. Since it's a safer environment, you stay in your car, you're separated with everybody. I think there's probably the snack bars and the bathrooms. You have to kind of be careful of who you come in contact with. But there's no experience that replicates that. Watching an outdoor movie either in your car or I when I went to the drive-in, I would bring lawn chairs and put them out in front of my car and just turn the radio up so I could hear the sound. But there's no better way to watch a movie in my opinion, unlike a really nice summer night. So I highly recommend it if you're able to get over there. I know it's Dearborn, and we'll make fun of Dearborn. Dearborn's actually a pretty cool town. They have a lot of it's a very diverse population, and there's actually a lot of cool things in Dearborn. You just got to find it. So
I worked in Dearborn, like I think in 2012. I was working for American Express, so I would always drive there, and every time I was down there, I had to try at least like some sort of different food there because there's so many things, so many restaurants there. It was great.
Yeah, it's so great. Yeah, so if you get bored one of these upcoming weekends, grab a friend, head over to the Ford Wyoming Drive-In, and I would love to hear what you think of it afterwards. It's one thing to be, I guess the theaters now are pretty cushy, got the lean back seats, and they're big and padded. But yeah, there's something about watching a movie outside, like under the stars, that is pretty magical, for sure.
Now, since you've been to Michigan a lot, I know that you go to a lot of conventions here too.
Yeah.
The first time I've actually met you was back at Motor City Comic Con in 2016.
Yeah.
That was the first year I had VIPs ever for any convention.
Thanks, man.
So I went there, and then I think you were in a panel with Detroit Podcast. I think, or Podcast Detroit. I think
Yeah. We did a whole like podcasting panel for sure.
Yeah, and, I sat in the front row. I remember this clearly because like it's just as clear as day. Like after you guys were done, you came and shook my hand, and then like the end of the day, I think that was either a Friday or Saturday. I came to take a photo with you, and then you were like, just keep your money and buy comic books, and that was probably one of my best memories I've had at
right on. Yeah, I probably had everything packed away. I'm like, dude, just keep your money, man.
Yeah, you and Mike were there. I think you guys are ready to go too. So like you were nice enough to just let me take the photo with you, and and you took off. But it was, I gotta say thank you for that, man, because I talked about that with my fans too on my live stream on Facebook here. I told them how I met you and stuff. So yeah, and now I'm actually podcasting with you too. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it's cool, man. And I'm guessing, I guess you didn't have a podcast back in 2016, so hopefully that panel or maybe us inspired you to start.
Yeah, it definitely did, because I think that year I was just learning about it.
Yeah,
and I originally had some friends that we wanted to podcast together, but now that I'm on my own, it's kind of just like, I guess, snowballed into that. So
right. That's cool. I'm glad you started. Two, I'm glad you kept going. For anybody listening or watching out there who even has a thought of maybe I should start a podcast, do it. That's all there is to it. If you ever have questions about gear or any of the technical aspects, it's becoming a lot easier to start a podcast, first of all. But if you're intimidated by any of that, that's what we're here for. Any other person that has a podcast already, we will help you at the drop of a hat, because we remember how hard it was to start in the beginning, and we love helping people out. And then you have the added bonus that me and Ricky and we're geeks. So I think as geeks, I remember reading, like if I read a really awesome issue and I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. I wanted all my geek friends to read it too. It was like I discovered something. And I couldn't just keep that discovery to myself. I had to pass it on to other people. And it's the same thing with podcasting. Like if we find something really cool, we want to share that love with everybody else. And if you're even thinking about starting a podcast, I definitely recommend it. I think a lot of people are daunted by all the equipment, and then how do I get onto iTunes and things like that. And it's kind of why we started our podcast studio. Is that we wanted to just make it easy for everybody.
I think that's great too, because like you guys are helping pretty much everyone and anyone really to do a podcast, whether it's about sports or comics or like
Yep.
I've seen you do some podcasting with people with like with medicine and stuff like that too.
Oh yeah,
So like
for sure. A lot
any
of
topics and genres, and I think that's really great that you guys are doing that too.
Yeah, I think when we started the studio, we were, at first we thought we kind of catered toward the geek market. Like we knew that geeks like to argue about pop culture. We knew that they would argue tooth and nail about just all the dumb stuff that we love, like the force, flux capacitors, adamantium versus vibranium, stuff like that. We knew that geeks love to argue with each other, and we were kind of pushing. It was like, hey, instead of arguing with each other and having your argument just kind of go out into the ether, why don't you come on down? We'll record it as a podcast, and then you have your own episodes that you can share with the world. And that's how we kind of started. And then we were like, wait a minute, I think small businesses could really benefit from this. They can promote their business. They can tell stories about how they got started, where they failed, how they succeeded. They can interview other small businesses. So we started getting that market as well. And then I think the day I realized that the whole studio idea would not only work, but that anybody could start a podcast, was I got a call from this dude, and he's like, hey, you have a podcast studio. I want to start a podcast. I'm like, oh, about what? Do you want to talk about pop culture? Do you have a business? What's going on? He's like, no, I usually get me and my 3 friends, and we go out and party on the weekends, and then we want to come back and talk about it on Sunday night. I'm like, oh, I guess that could work. That's a podcast, and that podcast took off because it's a podcast about partying, and it was awesome. And I was like, wow, this studio might work. We have the serious business over here. We have the 4 guys who party over here, and then we have everything in between. I'm like, this is truly a format open to everybody. And I was like, man, that's awesome.
I think what podcasting has done for people is like not a lot of people know how to conversate anymore.
Yeah.
So hearing conversations and hearing people be genuine with each other and just laughing and like even hearing like some of my favorite podcasters are like Timothy De La Ghetto, just hearing them just converse with their friends and laughing and joking. Like people kind of want that in their content or when they're listening to that kind of content too. So I think with podcasting, it's really open doors for people to kind of just say and talk about pretty much anything.
Yeah, you're right. I think very rarely we're in a society where we just text people. Maybe we'll FaceTime, but yeah, most people don't really see their friends on a daily basis, or most people don't see a lot of people face to face on a daily basis. So I love that we were able to get together. So our one of our main philosophies is we try to insist that if you have a co-host or guest, bring them to the studio. We want you to sit around the table, face to face, and talk about what you love or talk about what you hate, or argue with each other or agree with each other, which worked out really well. And I thought at least for once a week, sit down with your friends and podcast and get together and be with each other, and just have some human contact and interaction. And when this virus hit a few months ago, I was and people weren't allowed to come in here and do that. I was like, oh man, well we kind of lost all of that. What are we going to do now? And we'd been using Zoom and things like we're using StreamYard right now, but video conferencing applications. But mainly we would connect like a physical host here at the studio, and maybe somebody remotely. So at least one person was here in the studio. But now I was like, wow, can we do it with both people on a computer screen? Will the interactions be genuine? Can you hold a valid, real conversation across the computer screen virtually? What I was really worried about is like, oh man, can you bust another person's balls over a computer screen? Like, can I make fun of Mike Zapsik on a computer screen? We discovered very quickly that yes, you can. That all worked out. So we moved most of our podcasting clients online, and not only that, but we've been doing this. Me and Mike were like, well, wait, why don't we hop on other people's podcasts? Like, surely maybe there's some geek or pop culture podcasts that might want to have us on to talk about either the TV show or just our viewpoints on our fandom and our geekdom. And that worked out pretty well. I love that I can, on a random Friday night, that we can connect and talk to each other. I
Yeah,
think
I think that was a really smart move that you and Mike did, and not just that, so many other podcasts are doing that now too, with the whole Zoom meeting
Yep.
or using any sort of video chat format. And now that's kind of like almost the norm now with the past 3 months.
Yeah.
And so everyone's been doing that. That's all I've been seeing on my Facebook is just like people having multiple screens, talking to each other, using OBS and all that stuff too.
Yeah, for sure. So actually what I'm hoping, I was like, well, it worked for me and Mike, and we're not, we were on one TV show. I was like, how come like you can't book like Chris Hemsworth for your podcast? Like how cool would that be if you could get Chris Hemsworth to come on for 20 minutes to talk about Endgame, or like Benedict Cumberbatch? That would be badass. Like imagine, like I would shell out good money for that, to have like the Russo brothers come on my podcast and give me in-depth stories about Infinity War and Endgame.
Well, I thought you'd probably do that by now, right? I thought you would.
I don't have that much juice. I think like what I really like, I don't know how I would do that. I would love to come up with a service, like a Cameo like service, where you could book high profile guests on your podcast, because I think not only is podcasting like, it's a big thing now, everyone knows what a podcast is. I think a lot of these stars in our world have started their own shows, and they know how hard it is to book guests, and they would be more willing to hop on just a fan's podcast, because they know that they would get a forum to talk about their own thoughts and in their own words, whatever they want to talk about or whatever they're being asked of. And not only that, they get a platform to promote their own shows as well. I think this is something I got to work on, man. I think that would be cool. Or I think imagine how many podcasts would just like love to have Kevin Smith as guest for like 20 minutes. Yeah. And he loves podcasting, so I think with enough time and incentive, aka a couple bucks, that he would pop on other people's podcasts. I believe he did hop on a couple fans' podcasts over the last couple weeks. So it's not a far-fetched idea. I think it would be pretty cool.
I think that'd be really cool too, with have pretty much guests on like that kind of celebrity tier guest on anyone's podcast. But I was thinking about like how Cameo, man, how much they charge depending on
you're right.
On who it is. I think like Brett Favre is like $500 for 1 minute.
That's the one example I go on, because I think beginning of the year or somewhere around there, I got contacted by Cameo, and they're like, hey, would you consider joining Cameo? I'm like, really, me? And I looked at the listing, like Ric Flair's on there, Brett Favre, Debbie Gibson, like these. I was like, wow, these are like major stars, man. These are maybe not all of them are A-list, but there's some A-listers on there. And I was like, well, who would want me? Like, I'm not on that list. I'm just Ming Chen, comic book man. They're like, no, you don't get it. If you go, we advertise a lot. We're a pretty big platform, and it's not just for people who want to spend $500 for a message. You're gonna get the people who will, who want you, and just set your price accordingly, and you will get booked. I'm like, no way, man. No one's gonna in this. It's a big pool, man. Like I'm just this like tiny little piece of algae, like on the side of the glass, and they're like, just wait, it's gonna work out. So I think I made I made mine like $20. Like I was like, everyone's got $20. If you really want me to wish somebody a happy birthday or give for someone a shout out, here I am. So I just kind of put it out there. I didn't really advertise it, and I kind of laughed it off. But slowly, I would get like one a week. Sometimes I get 2 a week, and it would kind of build from there. And I was like, well, and I would see they can leave you a review, and afterwards, after they saw it, and I started getting reviews from people like, wow, it's making. Like, hey, thank you so much. You made my husband really happy. Like this is the best gift ever that I ever gave him. Things like that. And I was like, okay, if I can make people happy by leaving a message, then that's pretty cool. And then I think 2 weeks ago, I got a very unique request. A guy was like, hey, me and my girlfriend are big fans of comic book men. We met you at a con in New Orleans, and I am going to ask her to marry me. And if you would you help me propose to her via Cameo? And I was like, holy crap. Talk about high pressure, man. So I kind of formulated something. You have 5 days to do it. And right on day 4, I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready. So, and I did it, and I sent it to him. And the whole day I'm waiting on pins and needles. I'm like, dude, did she say yes? Like, how bad would it be if she said no? And finally, I got the text back. I'm like, dude, that was awesome. She said yes. Thank you so much. You did a great job. And then his now fiance, contacted me as well and said, hey, that was awesome. That was a complete surprise. Thank you. I'm waiting for a wedding invite, but we'll see if that happens. I invited him to come up to Jan Silent Bob's Secret Stash to take their engagement photos one day if they want to. So yeah. So while my camera, I try to leave at least a 4 or 5 minute message. I'm like, hey, listen, I'm going to give you your money's worth, man. So I just go on and on. But yeah, some of these people charging $300, $500. They're like, hey, what's up? I'm X. Happy birthday. See you later.
It's like a 10 to 15 second video for that much. And I was like, I don't know if I would want to pay that much for that kind of time.
Yep. I'm like, no way, man. I'm leaving you at least a 4 or 5 minute message, man. You're going to remember this message. I'm going to go on so long that you might get sick of me. So it's cool. It's cool. But yeah, we should invent like a cameo for podcasting.
I think that would be pretty cool too. Like even if like for shout outs and stuff too, like that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
For audio drops and all of that.
Oh yeah, totally. Because we know how hard it is to book guests, and if you could get somebody little higher profile, and you're like, and then you can advertise as like, hey man, I booked, I got Benedict Cumberbatch to come on my podcast. Everyone's gonna listen to that episode, and you're gonna increase your audience for that. And yeah, the toughest part about podcasting is like, well, how do I get people to listen to it? And you really got to work at it. It's a second job marketing your podcast, telling people about it, getting people to listen. But it would be made easier if Kevin Smith came on your podcast. I think a lot of people would listen to that episode. So
yeah, something like, I don't want to say it's like clickbait, but you have to do some sort of tactic like that.
Oh yeah, I can't remember the last count. I don't know. There's like 30, 40 million podcasts out there. Yeah, you got to stand out somehow. So yeah, hopefully we can make that happen someday.
There was one question that I asked you earlier today when you were on Facebook Live, and it was, are you still currently reading comic books?
I am. I took, we all got kind of a forced 2.5 month break, just simply because most of the most, if not all comic shops were technically closed. We, at the Stash, we were doing curbside delivery. All of our reservists, the people who reserve the new books every week, we would mail them to them. So, because we didn't want to lose them as customers. But I think I would imagine 99% of comic book shops were closed. Like you couldn't go in and browse the book. You couldn't go in and talk to the geeks that were in there every Wednesday when you got new books. And I think that part really killed me. Like I couldn't go in and see, it's like it's like going to a bar, but with comic books,
Yeah. I like seeing like the new pull list for the week.
Yeah, and that I know the guy running the store either or the Stash, or usually when I travel, I try to hit all the comic book shops in the area. So I really love talking to the people who are crazy enough to open up a store. That's what I really love talking to, and so all that was wiped out. So during that break, I went back and read a lot of my old trade paperbacks. So like Preacher, Why the Last Man. The Jack Knight Starman that came out in 1997, 96, 97, written by Jerry Robinson. I reread all of those as well. I went back to a lot of my old favorites, and I read and I picked up a lot of trades I hadn't even got to. Marvel's collected like all the What If comic books, and reading all those. I'm a big fan of the What Ifs for sure. So and now that there's,
I'm sorry.
Oh no problem. No, what did you do during this break?
I've been reading a lot of the Black Label stuff for DC.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah.
So I've been getting into that. I like the shortened like content of it, like where it's just 3 issues instead of like a continuity or like a 20 issue series. Yeah. So I kind of like that. But I wanted to get your opinions on this too. With DC being with different distributors now, and their books are being sold on Tuesdays. What's your thoughts on that?
That's crazy. I thought Diamond did a really great job with us. We've had no problems with Diamond Comics distributors, the people who run it, and I think Steve Jeppy, who's right at the top, the guy who founded it. I love his story. The guy used to be a mailman, and he on his route he would see people throwing away their comic books, and he would pick them up and collect them. Eventually, he opened up, I think, 4 comic book shops, and he founded modern comic book distribution and mastered it. and turned into Diamond Comics distributors. So, and I thought he did a great job. The one story that I love is the on in 2017. 2017 was the 20th anniversary of Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash, and on the day of our 20th anniversary, we got a little plaque in the mail with a certificate in it, and it was from Diamond Comics, and they're like, "Hey, congratulations on your 20th year in business. We appreciate your business. Congratulations, 20 years is a landmark year, and we just wanted to salute you." And I looked at it, and I looked at Walt, I looked at Mike, and I'm like, "Hey, did you any of you remember that it was our 20th anniversary?" They're like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "See, look, Diamond sent us a certificate. Today's our 20th anniversary." They're like, "Holy crap!" They had forgotten. I remember taking a photo of the certificate. I sent it over to Kevin. I was like, "Hey man, like you didn't mention this. Did you even remember?" He was like, "Holy crap. No, I didn't remember. I didn't even remember it was our 20th anniversary." So us running the store, the guy who owned the store totally forgot, had no clue, but I remembered, sent us a certificate. So I think that level of commitment and loyalty says a lot. That being said, the DC splitting off, I personally think it's going to be short-lived. I think it's a pain in the butt. It's a pain in the ass for retailers to sign up again for new accounts from either UCS or whatever the other one's called. It's a pain in the ass dealing with representatives from those companies. It's like setting up new accounts. I personally don't think it's great for the industry as a whole. I think shops have enough to worry about. Now they have to open up new accounts and worry about, a distribution service that so far is pretty much untested. And historically, there was a time when DC and Marvel tried to distribute comics on their own. There was Marvel had one called Heroes World.
I read up on something like that. Yeah.
I remember what the DC one was called. And they failed so bad that Diamond ended up buying both of them and merging them into their own service. So, yeah, I mean, I understand the frustration. I remember, Diamond was like, "Hey, listen, we're not. Things are really bad right now. We can't safely distribute comic books to you guys. And not only that, we're not getting any money because all the shops are closed. So, we're gonna have to halt for a couple months." And I guess DC kind of took that as an affront. They're like, maybe it was a last straw or something. I'm not really sure. And I'm curious to see how this plays out. I know the store. We did sign up for, I think, UCS to get our DC comics, but I don't know if we've been ordering as much as we did before. So, and I can imagine that a lot of shops out there are ordering as many DC comics as we were before. I think fracturing all this is not really great for the industry. So, yeah, we'll see. I don't know what's going on with DC. There were rumors that maybe they weren't going to distribute physical comic books anymore.
Yeah, because of the Corona stuff too. They were like going to do a whole digital service stuff.
Yeah,
they had some books on digital, and then now they reprinted them, and now they're being released again too.
Which, as you know, doesn't work. A lot of people ask us, is like, "Hey man, what do you think about digital comic books?" I'm like, listen, digital comic books are convenient. So if I'm sitting on the toilet taking a dump and I need to read, Dark Knight's Death Metal #1 that came out this week, and I want to read it right then, I can download it. If I'm if I need to read something in bed and I have my iPad out, I can download it. But ultimately, I think Mike Zapsik phrased it best. He's like, "All right, digital comics, they're great, they're convenient, you can read the content, but in the end, would you rather own a digital copy of Hulk 181 or would you want a physical copy of Hulk 181?" I'm like, well, obviously, I want the tangible copy that I own and is physically in front of me, and that if one day I needed to, I could sell it. And I was like, all right, well, there's your answer. I'm like, wow, okay. So I don't think digital will ever. I think digital is convenient for sure. It isn't going anywhere, but to not make print comics is, I think, a pretty huge mistake for sure. I don't think print comics will ever go away. And
I hope not. There's something about just holding a brand new comic book,
it really is, or even an old one. We do with a lot of vintage Bronze Age, Silver Age books for the most part, and just flipping through them and that smell of that old newsprint and the ads and holding it and like sliding it gently into a bag and board and putting the adhesive on the back. There's nothing like that, and that's that's what I think that whole experience gets collectors excited for sure. So, but yeah, I have to go in. I didn't go to the store. I've been busy. I didn't go on Wednesday, but I've been slowly going back. But I'm really looking forward to Dark Knight's Death Metal. I love it when Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder get together. They were nice enough to come on an episode of Comic Book Men, and I love what those two are doing. I think they work really well with each other.
They really do. Like Scott Snyder's writing, the way how he does it, and then the way how Capullo draws too, it just matches so well.
Yeah, I know Scott Snyder. I don't know if you ever met him at a con or anything, but very, very humble guy. He loves writing. He loves writing Batman, like that I can tell. But I think he said it outright. And Greg Capullo is just kind of big dude. He's jacked. He's a big dude. But his art style is like, I think he just likes. He knows what he's going for. He does it really, really, really well. And I feel like he's got this kind of attitude. It's like, all right, don't bother me. I'm drawing, but when I'm done, this is going to be really awesome. So
I think it kind of matches like his persona too. Like he has the really gritty art style, apocalyptic style, and then like how he looks too kind of goes with who he is.
I wholeheartedly agree. So I'm really looking forward to that as well. And I went through the Marvel list this week. There's not really a lot this week. I can't remember. I don't think we're in like a 5th week or like an annual week. So I don't know why. I'm trying to figure out why the low Marvel output this week. But I think number one on my list is Dark Knight's Death Metal for sure. I like just multiverses, the Batman Who Laughs coming back to wreak havoc. I think it's going to be amazing. And I did a lot of interviews or I hopped on a lot of podcasts with a lot of people like creators and artists in particular during the whole coronavirus. I was like, hey man, are you okay? Like, did your work slow down any? Have you had to move on to other things? And they're like, no man, we're still busy. So I think the output really isn't going to change, even though there were no new books for a couple months. The ones that they were working on never stopped. So
there was some shops here in Michigan too. They were kind of glad that Diamond stopped shipping because they were able to sell out like a lot of their trade paperbacks and a lot of the older comics. They were able to get rid of the inventory.
Yeah, for sure, and that's what we were trying to lean people toward too. I was like, hey man, I know there are no new books, but we got awesome trade paperback selection. If there was something that is you needed to fill a hole in your collection, or maybe you haven't read before, like dude, pick these up, pick up the trades, man, get it all in one shot. So I think we sold a lot. We moved a fair amount of trades during the shutdown. So, and I think the store officially reopened on Monday, 4 days ago.
Yep. And
with a couple of precautions, everyone's got to wear masks, and somebody cobbled together that plexiglass in front of the register, and but I think it's been pretty business as usual. I have to talk to Mike about what the volume's actually been like, but I think people are definitely coming back. So, and I hope they come back in droves. The shutdown was not good for anybody, but the industry itself was suffering already. Just as a whole, there's so many other distractions other than reading comic books, and so to have it shut down for so long was not great. So we got to get everybody back for sure.
Do you like the new character for Batman, the Punchline, Joker's new girlfriend?
Little gimmick.
There's like a lot of hype on that character just because like no one knew of her.
I know it's a little gimmicky. I remember, one of the times, the last time, a kind of Batman villain was introduced, maybe somewhat not really controversial. Not it says Punchline was when Kevin introduced onomatopoeia in the Batman universe. The one he would kill people and then he would be like click or bang. And
that's right.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome. Now, obviously, I'm biased. I've known the guy for like 20 years. He signs my paychecks. But I was like, dude, that's a pretty from just a new character standpoint. Like that's pretty cool, man. That's awesome. I don't know if we'll ever see your character in a movie or something, but like, man, let's hope so, man. I think that's pretty badass. So, but I mean, how it is. Anytime you introduce a new character, it's immediately it's like, oh man, like, is this going to be good, or is this a gimmick, or is this a ploy to sell more books? And so it remains to be seen. It's a little. I think it's a little gimmicky for sure, but we'll see what happens for sure. Yeah, I don't know if we'll be seeing Punchline in a movie anytime soon, but then again, DC's got a lot of work to do on that front. So yeah, they're too busy worrying about the Snyder Cut, I guess, to worry about anything else.
What's your thoughts on that then? Because like
I,
a lot of people were like doubting it, and then all the actors were saying like there is a Snyder Cut, and now we see like the trailers and stuff for it.
Here's my thing, and I know Scott Snyder unfortunately had to hand the reins to Joss Whedon because it hit a pretty big family tragedy, which I understand. But I'm like, we saw the teaser yesterday where there's like, oh my God, there's Darkseid. I was like, great. Why didn't you use Darkseid in the beginning? Like nobody cared about Steppenwolf. Steppenwolf was a weak villain. Yeah, I can't imagine I don't know who chose who in what meeting who approved this. Like Steppenwolf was the main villain. I'm like, really? Like, obviously, you should have used someone way more awesome. Freaking Jack Kirby created a character, for God's sakes. And I can't imagine they did that, and Justice League didn't do great. And then you see Infinity War. It's like, oh, man, that's a villain, Thanos. Like, why didn't you put the DC version of Thanos in instead? And I'm sure somebody lost their job over that for sure. So now they're like, hey, man, there's a Snyder Cut. It's awesome. We're going to introduce Darkseid. And in my opinion, I'm like, all right, you spent all this money. This is one of your tentpole movies. This is the one. You got to put your best out there. And why didn't you do that the first time? Like why did it take a fan outcry like 2-3 years later for you to finally be like, oh, we have a better version? I just don't know. And then you got to go back to history. Like which director has there ever been like a director's cut of a movie that was better than the original? And it's a very short list, if any. I think there was a director's cut of James Cameron's Aliens, which I think they had some additional scenes in there, made it a little bit better, but it didn't. It wasn't earth shattering. The James Cameron movie The Abyss, they cut out a whole bunch of stuff that made the movie nonsensical in the theatrical cut, but in the 3.5-hour James Cameron director's cut, he was able to keep everything that he wanted in, and it made way more sense. So that definitely made the movie better, but it wasn't earth shattering by any means. So I don't know, man. I can't see it being like earth shatteringly better. Like really, like why didn't they do this the first time? They had the opportunity, they had the money. I imagine they had the time, they had the talent. Why did it take an outcry to be like, oh wait, there's a Zack Snyder cut, and well, here we're pour some money into it, and here you go, HBO Max 2021. Like, and so now I remember once that happened, what's his face was like, hey, I have a director's cut of Suicide Squad. You guys want to see that?
Oh, yeah, David Ayer was saying that. Yeah, he had like more Joker scenes of Jared Leto.
I'm like, come on, dude. At one point, my joke is like, well, does Josh Trank have a secret director's cut of the Fantastic Four movie from 2015 to make that movie better? Come on, that movie was awful, and there's no way to bring that movie back from the dead. There's just no way. So I feel kind of the same way about Justice League. They got what they got. Why? I don't know. Unless you want to go back and reshoot the entire thing and rescript it, yeah, there's no hope for. You're not going to save it. Like,
and it just like makes it worse because like now with this like soft reboot of the movies, with like Robert Pattinson being Batman, right, and then Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. Like if people don't understand the whole multiverse thing, everyone's going to get confused about the canon.
And I think that was their first mistake, casting Ezra Miller as the Flash and putting like, listen, everyone's watching the Flash TV show, and I in most of America, in most of the casual fans' minds, Grant Gustin was Barry Allen, was the Flash. And now you got this other guy, and if you try to explain the concept of the multiverse to the casual fan, they're not gonna either one, they're not gonna get it, and two, they're not gonna care. And I thought that was a big mistake on DC's part to not cast the TV counterparts in the movie. But that's me saying that personally. And I know how dumb people are, so they didn't really grab it. And I mean, Ezra Miller was all right, but I think Grant Gustin, I think, is a great Flash. He plays a great Flash. He plays plays a great Barry Allen. I mean, there's a reason that show's going on for as long as it did. There's a reason that Kevin wanted to direct episodes of it.
Yeah.
Saw that show had not only had a lot of heart, but really followed the canon and the heart, the real beating heart of what the Flash is. So, and
do you like the fact that the CW shows like have Barry with the team when really in the comics he's mostly just doing everything by himself?
Yeah, I think with the thing with with the TV show, as they get into later seasons, like they can't recapture that magic they did before this, so they got to do something to keep it going. And I think that was their way of. I was like, all right, we're in season whatever's 6 or 7 here. Now we got everything on Team. Now here's Team Flash. Here's future Team Arrow. I'm like, whoa, what's this? Like, they had to team everybody up. So yeah, but it's kind of fun that now in 2020, like almost any day of the week, you could flip on the TV or Netflix or something and see new comic book based content. Whereas, I'm pretty old, but like when I was a kid, we had the Bill Bixby Incredible Hulk TV show, and that was pretty much it. And then we got a lot of bad stuff back in the 70s and 80s and some of the 90s as well. So we had like the Nicholas Hammond Spider-Man TV show. I don't know if you ever saw that, but that was pretty awful.
I don't think I have, but
yeah, you should check.
Have you seen any of the Japanese Spider-Man?
Spider-Man, I love Spider-Man. Like, it's such a weird take on Spider-Man. It's like, all right, this dude goes in a cave. He gets his wrist. I guess it's a bracelet, and the suit pops out of it, and he becomes Spider-Man. It's so weird, but I think it works. And if you've ever read the book version of Ready Player One, Spider-Man is mentioned in there.
Yes,
yeah. And I thought that was cool. I think somewhere, man. I think Spider-Man should come back in he's got to come back somewhere, man.
I was hoping more like Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, Into the Spider-Verse too, man. They should bring back Spider-Man for sure. I think that's so wacky, but I think, and I guess it was rights that they couldn't really follow, or maybe they were like, you know what, we're gonna do whatever we want in this one, and we're gonna take a lot of drugs too, and they came up with this. And for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, go onto YouTube and just search Spider-Man. There are full episodes on there, and it's really weird. But at the heart of it, I think they kind of captured the essence of like if there was a Japanese Spider-Man, like that would be it. So
yeah, with the robot and like all the mechanics and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
It's you could tell that Japan made that. Like, like Ultraman mixed with Marvel.
Yep, it's uniquely Japanese, and that's what I love so much about it. So, that would be cool if he popped up into the Spider-Verse. I think that would be a great introduction to American audiences for sure.
All right, so looks like we hit past about an hour now.
Yeah, right on. Do you have anything else?
Not really. I think we did good for the time here, and I gotta say, Ming, thank you so much for doing this, man.
Dude, thank you, man. I love that you started podcasting. I love that you continue. I love that you. I imagine you continue recording episodes during the quarantine and creating content. And hopefully, we get to do this in person soon. I come to Michigan a lot. My parents still live in Ann Arbor. We should meet up at Podcast Detroit sometime and record an episode.
We should. I would love to do that.
All right, let's make that let's do that for sure. I believe I'll be at Astronomicon in 2021. That's the horror pop culture Comic-Con in Sterling Heights. Okay. They've invited me back every year, so I imagine I'll be there. Hopefully, maybe I'll be at Motor City in 2021 as well. But it is my goal to hit every Michigan-based convention in my lifetime. So I'm getting there. So I think it's only fair. Like, I grew up there. I became a nerd in Michigan. So, I don't want to say I'm entitled to go to every con, but hey, man, I think, you gotta support the local people, right?
Yeah.
You gotta support the homegrown geeks out there. And we're two shining examples of awesome people coming out of Michigan, ladies and gentlemen. And don't forget that for sure.
All right, man. So this is pretty much it. This is episode 57 of Spoiler Force Podcast, and I'm so glad again, because the first time we were going to set this up, I had to cancel on you, but you were nice enough to reschedule with me too. So But yeah, thank you so much again, man. I can't say it enough. And this is very helpful for me. And what you do, Ming, for other podcasters too, keep doing that, man, because you know what? Podcasters need people like you for sure.
And yeah, again, I love what you're doing. Great luck with the Spoiler Force podcast. I am going to subscribe right now, so I have all the episodes. I can listen to them anytime I want, and I think everybody else should too. Thank you so much, man.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow, like, share, subscribe, and rate Spoiler Force Podcast. For comments, questions, or criticism, you can email me at rickyvang92@gmail.com or message me on Instagram at instagram.com/rickyvang92.